So around 2000, early 2000s, I was running a PR agency in London with my then girlfriend, now wife. And we bought our first home, which was a Victorian house. And obviously being a fashion agency, we were into our labels and brands. And we bought this new house and it had wooden floorboards everywhere. So obviously cold feet, and the internet was just kind of getting going. So I looked where I could, you know, went down to Asda, everywhere else, and they were just the most horrible granddad slippers you've ever seen. So I thought, you know, no one's doing it. Someone has to make a slipper that looks cool. You know, I liked cool stuff, so why shouldn't I have cool slippers? So I went to a party and I bumped into a girl who was working for a major sportswear brand, I won't name it. And I said, look, can I take you for a drink? I've got this idea. I didn't know anything about manufacturing, didn't know anything about design, but I knew about fashion, knew about labels. So she said, sure. I said, I'll pay. So we went and we sat down. She's still a very good friend of mine. And I said, look, I've got this idea. You know, no one's doing cool slippers. I think there's a huge gap in the market for it because I'm looking, so other people must be looking. At the time I was about 30, so we're talking sort of, you know, 15, 20 years ago. And she said, yeah, I think that is such a brilliant idea. I mean, no one's doing it. The sports guys won't really touch it because they're all about sort of energy and getting out there and keeping fit. And what you want to do is about sitting in and playing computer games and watching TV. So I said, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. So I said, look, well, can you help? Could you design me, you know, what I want? And she said, well, give me some pointers and I'll do it. So she asked me to do a sketch, which I did a terrible sketch. And she came up back with a design, and anyway, back and forth, we got to what we wanted. At this stage, we had no manufacturer, we didn't know where to make it. It was just a funny idea, and I was still running a PR agency at the time. Anyway, I was introduced to another very good friend of mine now, called Paul. And he was an agent for lots of factories. And I went to see Paul, and I always joked that it was a bit like The Apprentice. I had to kind of go and pitch this idea. And Paul said it wasn't like that, but I think it was. And I said, look, you know, I haven't got a lot of money. I don't want to buy thousands of these things. So he said, well, how many do you want? I said, could I have like 50? And he laughed. And I said, well, what's, you know, he said, well, I could probably do, the least I could do is 500. And I thought, wow, you know, that's a lot. And I said, well, could you do it in 2 colours? And he laughed again and said, no, that would be 1 colour. Anyway, long story short, he said he'd do it, and he did me 2 colours. So they arrived. I had no idea what I was going to do with them. A friend of mine had a warehouse, so I just stuck them all in there. We made a 1-page website that just had the 2 colours. And so this is where the story takes quite a mad turn. So anyway, I still run the agency. I had all these slippers in this warehouse, only 2 colours, no women's, no kids, just men's. And my wife used to do a fitness class with a DJ on Radio 1, Sarah Cox. And Sarah said, look, one day my wife had mentioned that we were doing these slippers, and Sarah said, look, it's Chris Moyles' birthday on Monday. Could I get a pair and I'll give them to Chris for his birthday? So my wife came home, her name's Tanya, and I said, yeah, sure. So I gave her these slippers. And Chris Moyles was always a real big rebel on Radio 1, I don't know if you remember those days. And he went live on air and said, I've just been given the greatest presents ever. They're called Homeys Slippers. And I've got them on now, and they're fantastic. So we couldn't believe it. I don't know where I was, but I remember my phone ringing and ringing, all my friends. Isn't this you, Dan? Isn't this what you're doing? And I was like, yeah, it's me, Homeys, that's me. He said, you're on Radio 1 now. So within that next week, it just went crazy with top man rang us, office rang us, shoe rang us, virtually every high street stockist rang and said, are you the guys from Radio 1 that we heard on Radio 1? So I said, yes, we are. So that was that suddenly we were ordering thousands of pairs. We had to get more than 2 colours, obviously. And it just took off. So suddenly this was my main concern. So the other business that I was running, the PR company, we decided to sell that on and focus on Homeys. We just had a daughter, so we thought, well, let's get out of London, get a warehouse, move somewhere nice and rural, and let's do this. So we did that. That was 15 years ago, and it just went from strength to strength. So we were dealing with all the retail people in the UK, and then COVID hit, which obviously was 4 years ago, and that changed lots of things. Lots of the retailers weren't doing what they were doing before, and there was lots of problems with all sorts of things. But obviously the internet was in full working order by then, so people started Googling our name and just buying direct from us. So we didn't need to chase retailers because we were the retailer. So we have a warehouse not far from here, and we had all our stock in there. And Bob, a few years ago, said, look, you know, I've seen you around. We'd love to, you know, do, all the picking and the posting and the packing for Homeys. And we had a small team over there. I mean, very small team, and we were really, really busy. And I kind of said, okay, let me thinking about it. And a few years went by, and the winter before last was one of our biggest winters ever. And it was a real strain to just get the stuff out of the building. And we realised we needed help. So Bob rang again, and I said, let's get together, let's have a chat. And we had a chat, and Bob stepped in, and it's just been smooth sailing. He's taken over all the distribution for us, all the postage. We are rated 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 600 reviews. A lot of those mention delivery, which is all down to the Bob's team and Diamond Logistics. So we're very pleased with how it's all turned out. And it's left us being able to focus on the marketing of the brand, who sees it, getting to the right audience. We've got a far greater customer base now, with us being able to focus on the marketing side of the business rather than having to worry about getting the boxes out, getting the boxes in, and all the logistical side of things. It's really freed us up to push the brand as we wanted to. And to this last Christmas was our biggest yet, and we continue to do really well. So it's a pretty crazy tale to how we got here, but that's where we are. And Homeys Slippers, there you go. Well, now we have this new structure in place where Diamond has taken over and Bob and his team have taken over the logistical side of things. I think we can now grow the brand, maybe internationally. That's something we're looking at the moment, where we can go across Europe. Obviously Brexit hasn't helped with that, so it's more difficult than it used to be. But certainly new products, we might introduce something that's, we've been very loyal to what we create. And I think that's what people wanted. They wanted something they could go back to every year and it wouldn't change and the quality would be there. And we've done that. And I think the next step, if anything, might be introducing a summer product, something that we could do with the same quality, the same passion, and the same brand, you know, image as Homeys, but with a summer product and something that's a little bit more light. And maybe stepping into the clothing market as well. There's a lot of people out there who love spending a Sunday, including myself, lounging around the house. And rather than sticking on an old t-shirt with a hole in, you might want something a bit cooler with a bit more of a loungy feel. And I think Homeys is a brand that could easily do that. We know our customer, we can keep them happy, they come back to us year after year, and obviously now with Diamond Logistics we have a great partner in making sure that product gets to their feet as soon as possible.